Good morning, everybody. Shift your mindset here. New episode of the day. All the JWs are apostates. Like me, like you who's watching. Everybody is an apostate. And why? Because apostates is the favorite word of the century. Everybody who doesn't agree with the teaching, or someone leaves the organization, or someone is making a YouTube video like me, or whatever, a website, everybody is an apostate. And you have to be aware of apostates, and you have to keep yourself distanced from apostates. Apostates are bad. It's like if they are in an argument with somebody, it's always, oh, you're an apostate. We are not repentant and stuff like that. So it's their favorite word to scare other people from associating with someone who doesn't believe the same thing as them anymore. But you can also say, hey, he took a different path in life. Let's respect that. But no, apostate, apostate, apostate. But JWs are also apostates. The first one who founded the Jehovah Witnesses is also an apostate. Because what is an apostate? What is apostasy? It's the abandonment of a religious or political belief or principle. So also the abandonment of a principle. And it's always also an abandonment of belief. So it started already with C.T. Russell, who was an apostate. And if we go to the Zion's Watchtower and Herald of Christ's Presence, July 1, 1879, he says, what is truth? This question is one which every sincere Christian should ask and seek to answer. We should learn to love and value truth for its own sake, to respect and honor it by owning and acknowledging it wherever we find it and by whomsoever presented. Truth can be presented by someone outside of your own religion. A truth presented by Satan himself is just as true as a truth stated by God. A truth is a truth. So who presents the truth doesn't matter. A truth is a truth. That's the base of what is true. Perhaps no class of people are more apt to overlook this fact than the Christianity. And he was pleading for himself because he abandoned Christianity. He was an apostate of Christianity. How often do they, the Christian people, how often do they in controversy overlook and ignore truth presented by their opponents? This is particularly the case when arguing with an infidel. They feel at perfect liberty to dispute everything he says on religious subjects. This is not the correct principle. Many infidels, me, are honest, as anxious to speak and believe the truth as are Christians. And if in converse with them, we ignore truth which they may advance. We not only fail to convince them of our truths, but put an end to all hope of reaching them. For a failure to admit the evident truth which they advance begets in them contempt for the one who is not honest enough to admit the truth because he doesn't see how it can be reconciled to another. Accept truth wherever you find it, no matter. So, of course, it was in his advantage that he wrote this, Russell, because he was abandoning Christianity. He was an apostate of Christianity, and he wants people to convince to listen to him. But a truth by Satan is the same as a truth by God. And that's the problem with Jehovah Witnesses. They don't accept the truth from outside of their own religion, and then they call somebody an apostate. But an apostate is someone who, what we saw here, abandoned a religious or political belief or a principle. There are many principles in the Bible. So it's also an abandonment of belief. But if we think about that, I found on the website an article about apostasy, and the JWs, the governing body, take a really bad example. Hymenaeus, an apostate from Christianity during the 1st century. Hymenaeus was identified by Paul as a blasphemer, full of empty speeches that violate what is holy. Hymenaeus, along with a certain Philetus, taught false doctrine. What was one of his false teachings? The resurrection had already occurred in their day. Evidently, this was their teaching, that the resurrection was merely a spiritual one or a symbolic kind, and that he dedicated Christians that they already had their resurrection. That this was all there was to the matter, and there was no further resurrection in the future under God's messianic kingdom. So he was an apostate. He was labeled as an apostate because his teaching was that the resurrection had already occurred. But later on, we knew it was a false teaching. But if we go back to Watchtower, what was one of their false teachings? What was one of their false doctrines? That is for example, I picked just one out of top of my dome. It was the doctrine, the principle, the teaching about the generation. This generation would not die. And then Armageddon starts and we have paradise and we all have a guitar and we're singing Kumbaya at the campfire with each other, and we are gonna build houses and we're gonna pet lions and stuff like that. The teaching of the generation teaching was a false doctrine. They were the same like Hymenaeus, what I just read to you from their own website. Now we have an overlapping generation, and it wouldn't surprise me if we get an overlapping generation, because it was possible that one person was in all three generations, and the age of the anointed one goes down. So in 5 to 10 years you need a new teaching about the overlapping generation. Another one is that we thought that Armageddon came when religion was attacked. Now we see that Jehovah at the annual meeting is gonna put one thought into, one thought into the nations, and they all gonna hand out their power to the United Nations. So now the United Nations is the one who is responsible for attacking false religion. Not every country on its own, but they give all the countries in the world, also Russia, North Korea, Iran, all those countries are gonna hand out their power to the United Nations. They're not even a member of the United Nations, but they're gonna hand out that power to the United Nations. That's also the latest one of their false doctrines. The teaching about that you can't have beards or pants or whatever. False doctrine. Let me know what comes to mind, what a false doctrine was, guys. Let me see it in the comments, because we can spend hours, and I'm not gonna do that, talking to you guys about false doctrines. What we thought that was true, but now, instead of acknowledging that they are apostates, they are calling it new light. So then you're not an apostate. So you see the word salad they use to indoctrinate all those JWs all the way to the end of their life, and nothing has happened. But Watchtower celebrated Christmas. They let that go. Now we don't celebrate Christmas. But it was a false doctrine to celebrate that, or false principle. People who were Christians, or Mormons, or Catholic, or whatever, became Jehovah's Witnesses. They already are apostates because they were abandoning their belief. So the whole thing is full of apostates. They use it now to say, oh yeah, you're spiritually rotten, or you are mentally diseased, mentally ill. That are apostates. But who is the apostate? Because a truth is a truth. Presented by me, presented by the governing body. If I present you a truth, it's still a truth. Doesn't care who's presenting them. But they wanna let you believe that everybody outside of the organization has false teachings. Say things that aren't true. But we saw at Hymenaeus that he also had a false teaching. But if you go back in your memory, my dear JWs, just remember what false teachings we had the last 100 years. Armageddon was coming in 1975. Where's Armageddon? False teaching. So if someone has a false teaching, he was labeled in the days of Paul as an apostate. So the whole governing body is the apostate 2.0. They are the masters of apostate. The master of disaster. They are the ultimate apostates. But everybody who adopts the new teachings of the governing body is also an apostate, because they are leaving, they are abandoning their former belief in the generation or whatever. Every time there is new light, you are an apostate if you adapt that teaching into your life. So we are all apostates. JW's apostates. I am an apostate. I had a belief, I no longer identify with that belief, so I'm an apostate. But don't make it as it is something bad, because whatever you are, wherever you are in life, wherever you live, wherever you are, a truth is a truth. So if you want to survive without the name calling, without blaming other people, pointing fingers at people that they are bad and you are good, and that you are the only religion on earth who's gonna survive Armageddon, watch out, because everybody in this world, even Satan, can give you a truth that is a truth. Doesn't care what person say something what is true. So if I present you something that is true about religion, that somebody is sentenced to 25 years in prison because he assaulted a child, that is a true thing I'm telling you. But the governing body wants you to label me as an apostate. And if you label somebody as an apostate, everything that person does is already wrong. So the JW mind, don't go behind that label, that apostate label. So instead of calling somebody an apostate, just let it go, that word, and just genuinely listen to what they have to say and examine if it's true what they are saying. But the tactics of the governing body are so clever in a bad way that because you give someone a label, apostate, all the things internally in the JW mind goes to explodes. There is no room for critical thinking. What is he telling? Is it true what he's telling? Why is he warning us? Does he have the best interest in me? Is it something I could examine myself, or is it true or not? No, they are just causing mental breakdown in your head because you've been labeling someone an apostate. And there's no room after being labeled as an apostate for JW mind to examine things. It's already, they're flatlined after that. So my advice for today, don't fixate on the label apostate. Jehovah Witnesses, you let go, you abandon a lot of teachings. It were false teachings, because now there's new light and it's another teaching. Now it's a good teaching. So automatically 1 + 1, the previous one was a false teaching. And in the Bible, a false teaching connected to a human being is being an apostate. So, governing body, I'm happy you're also apostates. Enjoy it, feel free, and just stop calling it the truth, because you're not the only one who knows what's true and what's not true. Thank you guys for listening. See each other on the next episode. Have a beautiful day.